Who is your one? That's the question that's being asked everywhere in America, especially at this time of year. Who is going to lead your offense come this women's basketball season? There's plenty of teams in the American Athletic Conference looking to answer just that question, particularly with so much turnover in the offseason from last year's floor generals. I've gone through and I picked out three teams that I think will be of interest in watching the point guard situation for the season to come. Some have more, some have less, but all of them will be something to watch. And what do they have to do with this man? You'll find out. But will Tyler get his message across in less than 10 minutes? We'll try, Pete. We'll try. Have at it. All right. When you look at the Memphis Tigers, they are certainly one of the teams that I think you could say is going to be a team that has a lot of work to do in point guard duties, right? They have two new players who are going to be competing for that spot in Deja Richmond and the newcomer Jordan Hunter, who comes over from Auburn. And both are supposed to have a pretty good shot at getting their hand on the tiller for the Memphis boat, if you will. But we're not here to talk about the Tigers in this particular broadcast. They fall actually further down the list. Having two or three point guards is not that uncommon in most conferences, and the American is kind of the same. When you look at the teams that have the most interesting point guard situations in the American, you look at three different units. And the first one should be obvious, the second two, maybe not so much. But the class of the American has been one team over the course of time, especially the last couple of years. It's South Florida. Jose Fernandez does an incredible job being year in and year out one of the best offensive teams in the league. And they are also the slowest in the American. When you play fast, you've got no margin for error. When you play slow, you've got no excuse for turning the ball over with poor decision making. And that is South Florida. They're going to have a whole quiver of arrows taking aim at leading this offense because they value keeping possession of the ball, getting good shots, and not turning it over. That's a big part of their game. So when you look at what the options are for South Florida, oh boy, this is the list. Stephanie Ingram comes over from FAU, having started her career at Georgia 2 seasons ago. She has already, I think, a very good handle on what this league looks like, having been the distributor for FAU last year and comes over after the coaching change. Gets to stay in state, gets to stay in league. Not a lot of players get to do that and bump themselves up into a better situation, but I think she has, in part because she brings the 1-2 counterpunch of being able to both draw some attention in the mid range, but also being able to step out and shoot the three ball. Not everybody on South Florida can do that. Look, nobody's going to be Sammy Puisis, but I think Ingram actually brings that ability and she'll let it fly. And I think that makes her more of a threat at the point guard spot. You could also see point guard duties falling to Eden Battle. And Battle has, I would say, the most identifiable skill in terms of drive and draw contact, right? She's going to get at least a couple of matchups this year for South Florida where her ability to get to the basket is going to be paramount to their winning the game. And she's going to be able to flex that muscle, I think, on multiple occasions in having the lead guard role. You also get an opportunity probably to see Kirsten Lewis Williams, who comes over from a great Buffalo side. That was a terrific team last year. And obviously, their coach going to Arizona tells you a little bit about what kind of program they were running. Lewis Williams is a little different because, in what I've seen, she's able to set up defenders a little bit, snake the dribble, kind of see who budges defensively and where the openings are. So she's not quite Battle and she's not quite Ingram. She's a little bit different than both of them. But to have those three players, all of whom averaged north of 9 points per game last season and had assist rates that were, I think, at minimum 18%, right? I mean, Ingram's was way up there. It was over 30, Battles was over 20, and I think 18% was Kirsten Lewis Williams. You talk about those three players, I think any one of them could, in theory, run point for almost any team in the American. Like I think they're that level of player, and they all happen to be in the same stable this season, and that's really an embarrassment of riches for a team that has already um, staked their ground at the top of the conference. And I think all three of them are going to need a chance to try and lead this offense to efficiency. We haven't even mentioned the returning Jeanette Arnio, who played over 300 minutes last year and isn't much of a scorer, but does know how to set up a teammate. So I think when you speak to South Florida and the point guard situation, the depth that they have is unparalleled, at least among teams in this conference on paper. And, that also neglects even to mention who they're going to be trying to throw the ball to inside, whether it's Katie Davidson, who might be on the wing, Laura Putu, Carla Brito, all veterans, all capable. And that is what part of what makes this South Florida team so, so dangerous. They have, I would say, at least on paper in the offseason, the best point guard situation of anybody going into the campaign. And it's going to be interesting to see how the minute share shakes out and the usage rates, so to speak, shake out there as well. We go from South Florida down from 4 point guards potentially, really just one with Wichita State. I think it is going to be the Taya Davis show, essentially, in terms of who sets things up for Terry Nooner's offense this year. She comes over from Fordham. She had 7 points per game last year, 34% assist rate. Not an incredibly efficient shooter, 36% effective field goal percentage. So, didn't have the best decision making with her shots. But look, this is a Wichita team that is cleaning house from last year after not having the season they wanted. They don't have any of their top scoring threats back or their ball movers. On paper, she is the most obvious choice to direct traffic. Played over 800 minutes. And I think the problem is what we spoke to just a second ago, which is her inefficiency with the basketball and with her shots. Now, that may have just been a Fordham thing for her, but if that is part of her game that carries over to Wichita State, and I'm not saying it is, I'm just saying it's possible that it looks similar for Davis this year, you're going to have to ask the question, all right, how much of that can Terry Nooner live with? Because he's got three choices effectively there. He's got to either stomach the inefficiency from Davis. He's got to help her improve it, which obviously, the player development angle is a huge part of the offseason, or he's got to have other options behind her. But behind Taya Davis, the best player in terms of assist percentage last season, who's now on the Wichita State roster, was Sophie Benaruga, who at 15.7 for an assist percentage is fairly low, and that was done at Seattle, and she's a post. So she put that up in less than 200 minutes over the course of the season. That doesn't really necessarily portend a huge role as a playmaker for Wichita State. We'll see, but those are just the numbers on paper. Right behind her sits Asia Reeves, who had a 14% assist percentage for McNeese last year, but she was even more inefficient than Taya Davis was in terms of effective field goal percentage. So I mean, when you measure the threats from the floor, neither one of them, I think, regards or I think engenders particular respect from defenses when you look at those numbers. Now, they may have improved in the offseason. They may be better fits at the Wichita State offense. But again, you look at those effective field goal percentages for those two players, and I don't know that either one of them draws a lot of gravity, gets a lot of respect on the scouting report. So either you've got to live with those inefficient numbers for Reeves and for Taya Davis, or the Shockers have got to find a different way to backstop their point guard play other than making Taya Davis play 40 minutes a game. They may do something like Pete Carrill and the Princeton Tigers running an offense that has more distribution through the post. That has yet to be seen, but I think that is going to be one of the interesting things to watch for Wichita State this year as they go forward and try to determine, okay, who is our shepherd, who's leading us out there on offense. Behind Wichita State, we go from potentially 1 point guard to maybe no point guards, but in an interesting way. I had the wrong logo up there. It was UAB for a moment. And UAB's got Journey Armstead and Alicia Carter. I think they're set at that position. Tulsa, meanwhile, is a very different animal. Now, you look at the last 3 years, and Tulsa and UAB are kind of linked in this category. Tulsa is a team that, like South Florida, leans on the offensive end. But year to year, they are the most intentional 3 point shooting team in the league. You put UAB in that category with them in terms of teams that just love to let it fly from the arc, right? That's what Randy Norton does. That's what Angie Nelp has tended to do as well. Those teams are going to spray it. But for Tulsa, what's interesting is over the last couple of seasons, they really have not operated with a dedicated point guard. I think you go back a couple of seasons, maybe 3 seasons ago, Rebecca Lasky was kind of that distributor for them. But nobody for Tulsa has topped a 23% assist percentage the last 3 years. So I wouldn't call it necessarily an equal opportunity offense or a 0 point guard offense for Tulsa. I think maybe equally unselfish would be the way that I would frame that recent approach for the Golden Hurricane. And now, based on what we've seen from the transfer portal, they feel like they're going a step further. They did not bring anybody in from the portal at the Division One level who posted an assist percentage over 15%. And that is really low. I mean, you're looking normally for a point guard to go, 20% plus in terms of assist percentage. Now, they may have a gem, a hidden gem, but a gem in Layla J. Cameron, who comes in from the junior college level. She had more than 130 assists last year down there. Sometimes those transitions don't work all that well. Sometimes they do. Journey Armstead proved it, I think, last year that you can come from the junior college level and transition fluidly into the American. She was terrific for UAB. And Cameron may do that for Tulsa. And if she does that, by the way, watch out. But if she does not, in order to manage the firepower that Tulsa has now collected, when you go down the line with Maddie Cartwright, Teresa Sapala coming in from Siena, Abby Jagetti coming in from Northeastern, and presumably a healthy Hannah Riddick at some point, those four players are probably going to see a good bit of the ball, and they're also going to have a healthy inclination to share the ball in order for the team to get where they ultimately want to go. So I think the Tulsa, zero point guard situation is going to be pretty interesting to watch as things go forward here and develop in the American Athletic Conference, or what's now the American Conference. And I'm going to get used to saying that as well as we go into the women's basketball season. So that's kind of my rundown on the most interesting point guard battles situations for the coming campaign. And I'll be interested to see in the comments what those of you who agree or disagree want to chip in with. Feel free to get at me, comments, social media. I'm not that hard to find, but appreciate you guys watching this video, and hope you enjoy and hope you check out more women's basketball content as we go forward toward the season.